Hey everyone, welcome to the show. We've got nothing to talk about today. Just another day in paradise here in Hockey World. Points for anyone who can guess what video game is playing behind me today.
Gorf?
No. What was your Gorf? Was that your guess? That's a good guess, but no, it's not.
It's Hubert.
Not Hubert. No, it is not.
I can't. Yeah, it's hard to really see.
Yeah.
To me, it looked like Castlevania a minute ago, but
Oh, that's interesting. It's not Castlevania though. No, it's interesting because it's got a lot of different. It is like Gorf has a lot of different game components.
Oh wait, no, all right. So
that's Pac-Man. That's Pac-Man.
Not Pac-Man, and no.
All right, whatever. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's start the pre-show.
Jim got it in the chat room. Thanks, Jim. Tron. That would be the game Tron.
Oh, it's Tron. There you go.
A bad Jeff Daniels movie.
Remember the game had like 4 different sections.
Yeah.
Continue on.
All right. So here's the pre-show.
It's all yours.
So the Aaron Rodgers saga keeps getting worse. Worse in the sense that it just came out today or yesterday that Aaron Rodgers mocked the Packers GM in team group chats by calling him Jerry Krause, which isn't his name. And
explain to everybody who Jerry Krause is.
No, you explain it because I don't even know the whole thing with Jerry Krause. To be honest, I don't. I just know he's a GM, used to be a GM. That's all.
Jerry Krause was the GM of the Chicago Bulls, who most of the players hated.
Oh, so he's going into the NBA. See, that's out of context. I wasn't even thinking Bulls. Okay. I just knew he was a GM in a sport, and I'm thinking, oh, yeah, Jerry Krause.
Jerry Krause didn't get along with Phil Jackson, didn't get along with Scottie Pippen because of the bad contract. And at the end, his reputation was so bad, he didn't fully get credit for building the team that Jordan won 6 championships with because he was so viscerally hated by the players and by the coach and by some other people.
Yeah, so let's talk for a minute. So, again, Green Bay doesn't deserve this. The fans don't deserve this. Just because this guy is a spoiled crybaby because he's not Tom Brady, he is now lashing out at everybody. And if I'm a team, let's just say like the Raiders, I'm not changing my whole franchise to bring this guy in because how do I know he's not going to do this in 3 or 4 months to me? And that's the worry. Right now, though, he has put the Green Bay Packers in a state of flux because going into OTAs, we know Aaron Rodgers won't be there. Jordan Love is the only quarterback on the roster. So now they have to get a quarterback just to have somebody else to complete the camp, and then maybe they keep him, maybe they don't, depending on what happens with Aaron Rodgers this year. It's just the whole situation is awful. I don't care about his football greatness. Matter of fact, to me, this takes away a lot of it because this shows me the lack of character he has.
Well, I'll just say this. Aaron Rodgers feels as if he has been treated with lack of respect by the Packers.
Because they drafted a quarterback?
I don't particularly think that that's the case. I mean, these teams, they're always looking for the next guy, even when the guy is potentially being replaced is at the top of his game and one of the best quarterbacks. He's definitely a Hall of Famer and one of the best quarterbacks in football history. But he should have known this was coming because he was Jordan Love however long ago, 15 years ago. He was the one who was waiting in the wings, and Brett Favre was the quarterback who they were preparing for. I mean, the only thing
you cannot expect a franchise not to draft your predecessor. You're the guy who's going to take over for you. You can't expect them not to do that. But that's garbage. I
think it's more than that. Russ, I think the thing where he's really pissed off. I mean, the Jordan Love thing pissed him off because they didn't tell him. But they don't really have to tell him. He's an employee.
They don't tell him anything.
Yeah, he's being paid $35 million. You don't have to tell him what's going on. But for them to win, he believes they should have been drafting offensive weapons to help him out, and they have not been doing that to his liking over the last few years. And he sees what happened with Brady, where he goes to Tampa and they load up with Fournette and they load up with Gronk, and they had the 2 receivers already. And then they added Antonio Brown.
You're right. Be less of a jerk, and that may happen for you. But the way he's handled this, he could have handled this all behind the scenes. They could have traded him at the draft, and instead he had to be the story, and that's it's a bad look.
Yeah, and now it's out there, and now what I think he's trying to do is he's trying to force his way out, and he's trying to punish the Packers by lowering his value of what they can get in return for him because of the things that you just mentioned.
There's no better franchise in football from a being classy standpoint to the fans, to the building, all of that, and he is basically just killing it. And you know what? This isn't going to look good for him in the end result. He could still go somewhere and win another Super Bowl, and people are still going to dislike him because of all this. That's it.
No, that's no question. All right, here we go. Let's start. Today's show is we've been fined $250,000 for not getting his name right. All right, Thursday. Okay, here we go.
You would be broke.
Hello, Hockey World. It's Thursday, May 6th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and today is the 84th anniversary of the Hindenburg explosion.
I'm Russ Cohen, and I know if Mike is celebrating an anniversary, it's something horrific.
And I'm Eichel, and you're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. It's the podcast that doesn't find you, but comes to you Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And I guess we have to start with New York and the New York Rangers and the game last night.
Seems that way.
All kinds of fun things are happening, and Russ was dead on yesterday with all of your thoughts during the show. Was really impressed when I got to listen to them later. But last night it all blew up, and now today the NHL player safety just a few hours ago says that Pavel Buchnevich will have a hearing for his high sticking against Anthony.
Okay, let's start with that.
Let's start with that
because what we did say and what I said, Russ was dead on most of the stuff yesterday. We obviously didn't know that the firing was going to happen, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But just the response, just the game, okay? I turned the game on, and I didn't realize until I looked at the box score this morning that I missed the opening fight at the faceoff dot at the beginning of the game.
That was the like slap shot moment. That was
really it was like the opening credits for Slapshot, right?
Right. It was.
But I saw three of the fights. I saw the main event, which was Brendan Smith jumping Wilson when Wilson first came on the ice. I saw the Anthony Bitetto fight. I saw Ryan Strome, the Ryan Strome fight. So at that point, I pretty much thought the fighting was over with. You did 3 fights, and then I find out 4 fights.
Yeah.
And at that point, I turned on the Yankees and the Astros. And and Russ said the same thing. If they were doing ratings on that thing per period, I'll bet you the rating dropped 50% after the first period. And
no question.
Now that's not to say, and maybe this is Neanderthal thought, but that's not to say that the Rangers were wrong in doing what they're doing, because I think they had to sort of defend the crest, because they had their star player had been injured by a guy who is just a noted weasel in Tom Wilson, and the league did not do what they should have done, which was suspend him. And but now and Russ, this was something that I said was going to happen. It didn't happen to the extent of Steve Moore with Bertuzzi, but Buchnevich, that is out of character. Buchnevich cross-checking Anthony Mantha across the face.
Right. Well, because you know what? Again, like you said, and like I said, I knew Brendan Smith was going to be the guy that had to go after Wilson. But you also knew the results weren't going to be in favor of Smith. It's good that he did it, and he showed courage for doing it.
Right.
But the Rangers didn't feel fulfilled, and nobody did. So that's when Buchnevich decided to do something worse. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him, because it all started from this path. But the game was garbage. Yeah. Starting the game off like that was horrible. Yeah. I don't think the Rangers are soft. I don't think anybody should have called them soft. Because at any given moment, any of those guys could fight at any given time. But when your team doesn't want to do that and the coach says don't do that, you don't do it. But to start a game off like that, if you're going to do that, if you want to just throw away the first period, that's fine. But the fact that the rest of the game was a garbage throwaway game was bad. And I think that is a bad direction. I know Glenn Sader enjoyed it. He quoted about it. That's terrific. He is supposed to be part of the transition team. I didn't realize he was going to be like the lead quoter now.
Sure. That's the story we get to in a second.
Yeah. So there's that. But as far as the game goes, just from a standpoint of the game, I thought, hey, the Rangers needed to do what they needed to do, but then they went way overboard to the point where, you know what? Now they are going to get a worse result than what Tom Wilson did. And it is an equal situation. I get it, but they're still going to be on the losing end, and Tom Wilson wins here.
But
Tom Wilson won the whole thing.
But the ironic thing here is, in the end, the guy who was punched as he was lying prone on the ice by Tom Wilson, who's a dirtbag, he's going to be the one suspended because it's cross-checked, and Wilson is going to go scot-free. And I'll tell you something right now, that will annoy the Rangers to no end, and I will guarantee, I will bet any amount of money that during the offseason, the Rangers trade for somebody or sign somebody who is going to be on that enforcer level for the specific purpose of Tom Wilson.
I do want to clarify. I'm not condoning a cross-check to the mouth.
No.
What I'm condoning is I knew the Rangers would do something else because they didn't feel like that fight was a good enough representation of how mad they were about Wilson. I'm not saying somebody should have gotten hit in the face with a stick, but you knew something was going to happen. That's what I was saying.
Well, the amazing thing here is there's a lot. I mean, Mike, what you're saying is obviously true. It looks, let's say, Messier gets suspended for a couple games, which I thought was deserved. But at the same time, everyone's comparing it to what Wilson did. So the situation right now, we have to just get out of that mindset of the comparison thing. And you can't, just because Wilson did something horrible doesn't mean Buchnevich can do something horrible.
Right.
And it's like, and that's a very childish way of looking at things. It felt to me like they felt like children in the beginning of that game. Like that was like, it was like throwing a fit type thing, like it would completely like, just relax, guys. I mean, I 100%, I had a discussion with Tom Laidlaw in the afternoon about this. And I was saying to him, I'm like, somebody who's going to get him, like who's going to go after him? And you said Smith, and Tom said there's nobody on that team that can fight Wilson. Anyone, whoever fights him is going to get killed. And if you go out there and you get killed, isn't that worse? And I said, no, but I said, it is. But that the way this works is someone has to go after him. There's just no way this game was going to go on without that happening. The Rangers, and it got amplified, okay, because it's one thing for the Wilson thing to happen and there to be no retribution. So the Rangers think, okay, now we have to take our retribution on the ice. Take what you want from that. That to me is a bit of a ridiculous, childish thing, but it is the way hockey players and athletes tend to think. So, all right, so there's that. But then what happens during the day with the firing of Davidson and the firing of Gorton, and whether or not they were going to get fired at the end of the year or not, who knows? But and I know that people are, and I know it's easy for everyone to say that they were because everyone's reporting that. And I've heard the same thing.
Yeah, I'm not buying the whole story. Sorry.
I've heard the same thing, but it's right now. It doesn't matter. Like they're fired now, so
it doesn't matter.
The reality is they may have been fired at the end of the year. They definitely were not. They were not planning on firing them on a Wednesday afternoon. Let's put like what we know to be true, right? That's the case. So they fired him on a Wednesday afternoon. Why? Because of repercussions from the Wilson incident, and the repercussions from the Wilson incident were pretty clear that Glenn Zather and I'm told Mark Messier as well are involved in this thing to the point where they both have been hounding Dolan all year. And Dolan, the owner of the Rangers, doesn't talk to a lot of people, but he talks to Zather. He'll talk to Messier. He'll take their calls about the Rangers being too soft all year long. They're too soft. They're too soft. Well, it's very typical for a rebuilding team to be too soft because the last thing you sometimes get are the guys, to help you be, right now they're going for skilled players. They need to build up skilled players.
Right.
You go out and you get the goons later. Like the Red Wings don't have any goons either. And you think Yzerman can build teams. It's just the reality is they're not there yet. They're not.
But the Red Wings are still in the first stages of the rebuild, and their talent isn't there yet. With the Rangers, I mean, the only thing that I'll say is I think that Gordon and Davidson were following the right path when I mean they got Adam Fox in a trade from Carolina. They drafted Kakko second overall. They drafted Lafreniere first overall. They were assembling talent, but They got
let me finish the part because the concept is this: like, so you have the Wilson thing, no one responds, they're a soft team. Then you have the firing of these two guys, driven by Glenn Zather, who says they're a soft team too, and uses harsher language than that, from what I'm told. So that Rangers group of kids last night, a young group of kids last night, go into that game thinking that everybody thinks we're a soft team. So like what I saw from the it's one thing to fight, like the fight to go after Wilson, sure, somebody's got to go after Wilson, but the fight right off the face-off, that to me was the Glenn Sather driven by the events of the day.
Well, right.
I want to mention.
Wait. But look at the first of all, the majority of all the fights were done by veteran guys. Smith, Boteto, Brian Strom. Who was
Hathaway did try and draw in Keandre Miller, and it didn't happen.
Blackwell against with Hagelin. So so it was all the veteran guys. It wasn't Lafreniere, it wasn't Kakko, and they're not ready to do that. But my point is that the way you structure an organization, when you have a bunch of young guys, you have to have somebody there to sort of police that team and say, okay, you can't take advantage of our young kids.
Okay, that's fine. We know that. What I want to get to is the biggest portion of this story that is lost is Jeff Gordon has done a great job. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows in the league Jeff Gordon has done a great job. Everybody in the league is completely shocked that this guy has lost his job over these kinds of circumstances when he got him out of cap trouble, made good trades, made them competitive. Now, anybody who thought the Rangers are supposed to be further along now is crazy just because of last year. And again, all we're learning is they're trying to push along prospects that you can't push along a timeline. It doesn't matter who you bring in as coach. It doesn't matter how many goons you get in the lineup. You are only going to add X amount of wins if the guys aren't ready. You could add another free agent in the offseason. But in the end, you can't speed up their development, and now that's what they're attempting to do. Wow. And it's a tough thing and almost impossible to do.
Well, see, here's the thing, and when Elliot Friedman made his appearance on Hockey Central this morning, and was talking about the whole situation and where he thinks things are going to go, he mentioned Jack Eichel. And there is the great accelerator of the process.
But it's not an accelerator.
Well, wait, let me finish and tell you what I think he's referring to. What he's saying is they don't have the patience to wait for Kakko or Lafreniere or some of these young guys to mature. They want it to happen right this second. So what they'll do is probably offer one or two of those guys in a deal to get Eichel from the Sabres. Now, I'm not convinced that the Sabres are trading Eichel, at least not unless they're getting an unbelievable return. But if that, we're going back to the days of Sather, when he was spending money like a drunken sailor with the Rangers.
I covered those teams, but what I'm going to say is it's not even so much, it's part of that, Mike, but the other part is, so when you make that trade for Eichel, it'll be more than two. It'll be like 3 prospects and a bunch of picks, and you're ruining your future to try and get one more win now, whenever that might be, because the Rangers have had one Stanley Cup in the entire Glenn Sather history here. And so they're trying to do that, and they're going to stamp out what is going to be a bright future for that one chance. And if they do go after that one guy, which is the one guy I wouldn't go after, considering he's coming off a neck injury, it's not advised. Right. It's not an advisable thing to do.
There's a couple questions and I think that play into this too. And then the one thing that people are asking me is why did John Davidson get fired? Okay, that's an interesting question because I did a lot of research on this. And Elliot Friedman, I totally obviously is very connected from the Canadian side of this. As far as from the from the Sather, Messier, those are Elliot Friedman guys. There's no question about that. So he knows a lot of what's going on. So listening to Elliot is definitely worthwhile right now. But there's the other side that is the USA Hockey side, and they're not as tight with the Elliot Friedman and the Jared Dragers of the world as some are. So from the USA Hockey side of things, Davidson came. Remember, Davidson left the Blue Jackets because he wanted to live in New York with his family. That he took a job with the Rangers to live in New York, and he's going to make a lot of money in the next 3 years anyway. He's fine financially for the rest of his life, but he also is. Always been JD's always been a survivor to the point where he always makes sure that he's got his next plan because he knows that this is a finicky business. So my belief was JD's next plan is going to be going back to the NHL, which is where he was before. He worked in the NHL, and that, of course, the NHL offices are in New York. So if you're in New York, if you're with the Rangers, you can then easily leave the Rangers and go to the NHL. The problem occurs when your team calls out the NHL and you're connected to it. And that happened yesterday. That happens a couple of days ago when when Dolan says, this guy's in above his head and all this, and the NHL, and they put out the statement, which Davidson and to his new extent Gorton were very much against them doing.
Well, I think
of course they'd be against it because they didn't know about it.
I think that the narrative over the last 48 hours has done enough to separate Davidson and Gorton from that statement.
Right, it has, but that was that, and that's a calculated narrative too, Mike. Because and my feeling here is that there's no question that at some point now. What I'm told very clearly is that Glenn Sather came in 3 months ago and had a meeting with the Rangers, and 3 months ago said that the Rangers were a bunch of soft players, we'll say.
Yes.
Cats. Right. And at that point, that's when Dolan starts thinking about maybe firing Davidson and Gorton, but doesn't do it yet. Maybe he's going to do it at the end of the year. We don't know his mindset really. We don't really know, like Russ is saying, we don't know that actually happens. But the reality is that happened 3 months ago. So, Davidson, who's always connected to everything that's going on around him and very, very good at finding out information, knows about this, I'm sure, is nervous about his job. And then when he hears about this letter going to the NHL, gets even more nervous. So, I don't know if he contacts the NHL at some point and tells them that, that he's not a part of this. But something happens that Dolan doesn't like. Can
I ask a very basic question?
Yeah.
Here's a very basic question. If this really happened 3 months ago, why didn't James Dolan walk up to his GM and say, "Get me some toughness"?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And
that's why I don't think it happened that way.
Or is Dolan just not thinking as much about the hockey team as
no.
I actually
he's not that far removed, Dak. I know you're getting that, but he's not that far removed.
I actually think it's the exact reverse in terms of his focus has been, and his short-tempered nature has been focused on the New York Knicks for the last, I'd say, 15 years. And over the last year, bringing in Worldwide Wes and Leon Rose to handle the management of the Knicks, and them sort of going down a more solid path. I think Dolan's focus is switched to the Rangers. Now, the thing is here, if he's getting impatient, that's his prerogative. Do I think that this was the right move? No. Do I think that listening to Glenn Sather, who is too busy smoking cigars on some golf course in Alberta? I mean, no. But Sather has the ear of Dolan, and and
he's always had it. It's not like they need to have a yearly meeting. He can call him anytime, and he'll take his call anytime. But my basic point is, if all these people thought the Rangers were so soft and everybody's saying it, why didn't the owner do anything about it?
What we don't know is maybe they did go to Dolan and say, "Get some."
Do you think that would have come out by now? It would have.
It depends. It depends on Gorton. Like if Gordon. I don't think of him as like the vindictive, going to throw stuff when he's walking out the door type of guy.
No, he's not going to do that.
I think they might have, Dolan might have gone to Gordon, and Gordon might have said, "I'll try, but I'm really got to make sure that I'm doing what's best for the team moving forward. I'm not really that concerned with things right now."
But if this is a battle of philosophies where Dolan all of a sudden wants this team to be muscled up like the Islanders with Matt Martin and Cizikas and Clutterbuck and Ross Johnston, and the Rangers lose twice to the Islanders, and that sends them,
they don't score goals. That's the main thing.
Right, but I mean, see, this is what I mean. The fact that they put that letter out a few years ago about the rebuild. Pierre LeBrun made this point in his article in The Athletic. 3 years is not a long time. It takes a while to turn a team around. And when you put out a letter to your fans saying we're going to suck for a while, then that basically says, okay, we're going to be on probably a 3 to 5 year plan. Okay. Like in Toronto, what they did was, they didn't send out a letter, but they basically made it clear they were going to suck. They finished they got the 4th overall pick with Marner, the 1st overall pick with Matthews. They signed Babcock as a coach. They were the worst overall in the league, and then they made the playoffs 4 years. But until this year, that team really wasn't a whole club in terms of defense, offense, toughness, maybe goaltending. Now they're a fully formed team. The Rangers are 2 years away from being that.
But here's even another factor. You're right about that. But here's another factor. So let's assume they did talk to him, and maybe that's why the Rangers brought up Anthony Bitetto, and maybe they should have been playing Julien Gauthier more, who can be very tough. He's a weightlifter. He's strong.
Yeah.
David Quinn's not playing those guys all the time. And so where does that fall in? Why is David Quinn not being mentioned at all in this entire equation?
Well,
hold on. They're too soft, so they get rid of the GM and they get rid of the president. But the guy who's actually in charge of who's being soft or not is not being talked about at all.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now that plays into the other narrative, which is very clear that Mark Messier is involved in this too. Mark Messier does plans a radio spot in New York yesterday. But
No. It was
what exactly went along with this? I'm not even sure what the Messier thing was.
Messier. They announced that Messier was going to be on the previous day before any of this happened.
Right.
So
any of this publicly, Mike.
That's
what I'm saying. That's
to the other part of it.
And he did
clearly like it was.
And they were afraid he was going to bail on the interview, and he didn't. And I listened to the interview, and he said absolutely nothing. He says, I'm not involved with the Rangers at all. I haven't watched
Mark Messier knows how to handle himself in situations like that. Like but he did say a couple things from what I heard.
He mentioned coaching.
I heard, he said a couple things, and the one thing that I found out yesterday through this whole process is that when Messier came in and interviewed for the GM job before, when Drury and all those people interviewed for it or whatever, it was the Rangers and Sather that told him to come and interview for it, and he didn't even really want the job. He wants to be a coach, and the bottom line is, you're not gonna fire. It really looks bad if you fire those two and fire Quinn and bring in Messier. Then it's obviously this Glenn Sather-ish coup.
So wait, it's going to look better 3 days from now if Quinn gets fired and Messier's in?
End of the season, okay, it looks better to me. They go through the season with Quinn. They play it through. It just there is a perception, and there's no real benefit in getting in Messier right now or any good. But Messier doesn't have any experience. I mean, it reminds me of Gretzky coaching. It's like. There are certain things. I mean, Messier's a great leader. We all know that. But Messier to Dolan is everything. Okay, so that's the one thing you have to.
Yeah, but you know what's going to happen. Messier will bring in Craig McTavish. He'll be the first guy he calls.
Yeah,
that's the first guy he brings in, and because he has all of that experience, so he's going to do that no matter what. But he's going to do it from a guy that's not been in that position for a very long time. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah. No, you're right. And he'll surround himself with really.
Did anybody here remember when Glenn Sather walked down from the GM's office and took over behind the bench? I covered the team then. Do we remember what happened?
No.
It wasn't good. They didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, and the most glaring example of what could happen if Messier actually does this, I don't care who his assistant coaches were, but is Gretzky in Arizona. And who was Gretzky's assistant coach with the Coyotes? Rick Tocchet. And Rick Tocchet was doing all the coaching. That's what these guys will do. Messier may be a fine coach, who knows? He's a different kind of character than Wayne, different kind of leader. Obviously incredibly well respected, but very different personality wise. People comparing him to Brind'Amour. Russ and I talked about this yesterday on the phone. It's like personality wise, Brind'Amour and Messier
are completely
not
different.
The same people. So people think that Messier is a much more of a quiet, follow me type leader than Brind'Amour.
I'm going to tell you a story. It was relayed to me by another player who's now deceased, so I don't mind telling the story. He told me there was a guy named Bill Cook who you heard me bring up when we had the greatest Ranger teams. He was like the Rocket Richard of the team. He was like Mr. Ranger. When he retired, he became the Rangers coach. Edgar Laprade told me he was the worst coach he had ever had at any level of hockey. And he wasn't the only one that felt that way. And that's what happens more times than not.
Yeah. It's a tough job.
Rocket Richard becoming coach. I think it was of the Quebec Nordiques and the WHA, and he quit after 2 games because he couldn't do it. He was not a good coach.
Yeah, and Randy's right. I think he did do Messier did the Spengler Cup one year. So
And Messier has not been working. If it doesn't have an official job with the Oilers right now, but Sather does. Sather's on the board of governors for the Oilers. And
he's a consultant with the Rangers. So what are you going to do?
For the Rangers. I mean, I'm not the Oilers.
Oh,
I mean, the Rangers.
All right.
He is with the Rangers, but with Sather as the board of governors, which is why Sather, probably to collect that paycheck has to come in once a year for a meeting. And I think that's probably something that at least if he was working for me, I would have him come in once a year to meet.
Heck, he's more involved than that. Trust me.
Oh, I know, but we're obviously, and as we're seeing what happened yesterday. Now, this is there was a time when I used to write articles about the Rangers being like a team, with a credit card limit that they couldn't ever let ride. Like they always had to take it to the max. They maxed out all the time.
Right.
And they've shown a lot of patience over the last couple of years to get to where they are right now. And that has been something that I guess is going to go away again.
Well, not necessarily because you do have a cap, but I mean, they have to spend money like Adam Fox on his new deal on Zibanejad. They have responsibilities with players on their roster already.
Right.
In terms of, I mean, if they go after a guy like an Eichel, they're going to have to clear salary someplace else because that's a $10 million salary. You just
bring in Eichel, Zibanejad's gone, and they still need a number 2 center, and it's still Ryan Strome. It doesn't really help the total equation. The other thing is, does anybody remember Brian Trottier as a Ranger coach? I do. I covered the team then. So
not every player can transition into coaching.
And that's why the Eichel thing doesn't make sense unless you keep Zibanejad to have a 1-2 punch. Replacing Eichel for Zibanejad doesn't really help you.
I agree. So if you're keeping both of them, then who are you getting rid of to save the money? Trouba?
Chris Kreider
now? You just signed him, now you're getting rid of him?
I know.
They won't be able to. I mean,
No, but this is what I'm saying.
They're not going to make that trade. I mean,
this is the quicksand that you get in when you try and take over a team that's on a path and you're trying to speed up the path. I know this sounds familiar, Rick. There's other teams that have tried this and are trying this currently, but I'm going to just keep it to this team right now. And it's hard to do, if not impossible. Yeah. And you affect yourself way more down the road than you should. And it looks like nobody wants to look even 3 years down the road with the Rangers anymore. That's what it looks like to me.
Right. No, I think that's the case. And I think that the situation is just very grim. And it's a shame because as you guys know, I've been sitting here defending how much I like this Rangers team, and I do. I mean, there's some serious talent.
There's a lot to like, but they weren't going to. Again, we're not going to get into the playoff squabble, but just to say because they were in the playoffs last year didn't mean they were making it this year.
No, because they weren't in the playoffs last year.
They weren't in it. They just happened to get in it
because there were 24 teams in the playoffs. They got in the playoffs last year. That's why they were in the play. I mean, they weren't a playoff team last year. They really barely made it. They made it because of like a crazy, over the Sabres, right? It was like a crazy thing that the NHL actually did. So yeah, there's a lot there. But so yeah, that's the. And now they'll talk about the $250,000 fine that comes down today because now the Rangers, kick us when you're down. The Rangers are now getting fined $250,000 after this whole thing. And saying what they said for calling out the league, which is
it was a very, how shall I say it? It was sort of a balls out statement. It really was. Like, I mean, it was you could word it a lot better and not be as accusatory as the Rangers were in their statement and make the same point across. But they essentially impugned the integrity of George Peros. And when you do that to an employee of the NHL, Gary Bettman is going to A, react, and B, back the employee. So if you think that George Peros' job is in jeopardy because of the statement that the Rangers made or the decision that he made about Tom Wilson, I wouldn't be surprised if Gary Bettman announced a 5-year extension of Peros' contract.
Well, at the end of the day, James Dolan doesn't care what Gary Bettman does, and Gary Bettman has to care what James Dolan does. That's the problem.
And what I'm wondering, Russ, what I'm wondering is, will the Rangers react again if Buchnevich gets suspended for, say, a couple games?
No.
Because if they come out again and say this is a joke, then the fine goes up to $1 million or $2 million.
No, that part's over. They're done with that. What they're going to do now is they're going to get in a mode where we have to get tougher, to the point where they're even going to try and draft tougher again, like when they drafted McElrath. And no offense to Dylan McElrath, but I said the day that they got him, you don't go into a draft trying to draft toughness when it takes 3 to 5 years to get a player to your team to make it tougher. Now, will they try and rush Braden Schneider next year because he's tough? Yeah. But unless he's physically ready, that's going to be a mistake too. But again, when you start thinking this way, these are the kinds of mistakes you can make.
And you don't want toughness in terms of an enforcer as a guy on your blue line. You never want it on the blue line. It's a biggest mistake. That's why when the Flyers wanted to do that with Sam Morin, I'm like, why in the world do you want to do that? Because now you have now cut down your pairings for at least a third of a period because this guy just fought. Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's nuts. All right. Let's move on. We do have a little bit of breaking news here, in that the Flyers have recalled Cam York. So they don't play again till tomorrow night, but this will be our chance to see. They play tomorrow. They play tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday. Is that true? They play 3 days in a row. I was looking at that.
They might, yeah.
I think they actually play 3 days in a row. That's kind of nuts. But I think they do play 3 days. They play tomorrow, Saturday, and Monday. Sorry. So. Tomorrow and Saturday in Washington.
Honestly, I would have waited till the last game of the season, given Cam York one game. By bringing him up now, you're now increasing expectations for something that shouldn't happen next year.
Right. Let me ask something that I was looking into this for selfish reasons, because I do a fantasy hockey pool. When do the playoffs start?
Nobody knows.
Because the NHL has not released a schedule for the playoffs. Now, this is the thing. When we found out, when Vancouver had the COVID outbreak and they had all their games delayed, and they scheduled 3 games after what was supposed to be the end of the regular season, there was speculation that it might delay one division, the North Division. But coincidentally, Calgary and Vancouver are pretty much out of the race. Montreal, I think, is 10 points, 8 points or 10 points ahead of Calgary. So these games are going to be meaningless games. They have to play them. The NHL wants to play them, but the NHL still has not announced the playoff schedule. Now, the regular season was supposed to end on May the 14th, which I think is a Thursday or Friday. It's a Friday. If that's the case, then the playoffs should probably start the next Monday or Tuesday. Usually it starts on a Wednesday, and when the schedule ends on a weekend, it starts on a Tuesday or on a Wednesday and Thursday, and they stagger it. They haven't announced anything, nothing, and I'm sort of baffled by that. Are they going to take a week off and let these meaningless games play, or are they going to play these games during the play? We're going to have Pittsburgh and Washington. And, by the way, on ESPN 6000, we're going to have Calgary, Vancouver.
I don't think they know, Mike. That's the funny thing. I don't think they know.
I think they are terrified to make a call on anything right now. And also, I think, they're going to let this week go. Like, with what the NHL doesn't want to get involved in anything else if they don't have to. They're going to stay out of it. They're not going to make anything that could be controversial at all right now. They just won't.
But what's controversial about announcing the playoff schedule?
Well, it is. It is, because it's going to. It depends on how much time you're going to be giving them. Like you talked about, are they going to give the North a little more time to start a little bit later because they're playing right up to the end, or are they going to make the North play right away? Or are they going to?
That would be the factor if Calgary or Vancouver were potentially playoff teams, and they would be going into a playoff playing extra games, but they're not. They're pretty much eliminated. They're not mathematically eliminated. I don't think Calgary's mathematically eliminated yet. I think it's, the magic number might be 2 or 1 or something like that. But by this time next week, they will be. And if they are, then all the divisions can start at the same time. Now, if they're going to give everybody a 4 or 5 days off because of the hectic schedule, and they want everybody to have a little bit of a rest going into the playoffs, I can understand that because of the hectic nature of the schedule. But Announce it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I will say this, Zach.
Yeah.
Shane Gossespierre today said he completely disagrees with the suspension and he thinks they missed the mark. What do you think is going to happen when a guy's going for an empty net goal and you then trip him and push him into the wall? What else could possibly happen on that?
Yeah, I mean, I know people are like, it wasn't much of a hit. It doesn't take much of a hit if you're not expecting it like that. I mean,
No.
it doesn't. If you just score and you let your guard down and you're skating away from it. I mean, and people forget, like, these guys are still skating at 25 miles an hour. Even though they're great skaters, they're still on a thin blade of metal. I mean, it's like if you get knocked into and you're not expecting it, that you're done. You're done.
Right.
And that's clearly.
So I don't know what he's thinking with that quote, honestly.
Yeah, I don't either. Honestly, I don't either. It's a really rough one. I mean, Shane's obviously very frustrated,
Of course.
And this is probably why we're seeing Cam York a little bit earlier, to be honest.
All right. So here's the thing, Eck. I'm sorry to interrupt. If this is right, if I'm reading it online, if Cam York is paired with Sam Morin tomorrow, why are you doing this to Cam York? Honestly, and it's not a rip on Sam. Why is he not with a veteran? Why in the world would you do this?
Play him with Provorov.
Yeah, you should.
We have to lose.
Be playing with Provorov and learning that. I mean, that's what he should be doing. So he's, every time he comes off the ice, Provorov could talk to him and tell him what.
So again, now we're going to get into, does AV really even want to play Cam York?
Yeah, this feels like he probably doesn't.
Right.
And I think that that's something that's been behind the scenes of the Flyers this year that's incredibly frustrating is the fact that I don't think this coach and GM are on the same page ever.
Right.
I haven't gotten the sense, and all you have to do to know that is to track the journey of Shane Gossespierre this year. That's to wonder if they're on the same page or not. They're just not. That's a frustrating one for sure. A tough one for the Stars last night against the Lightning. Watching this game, it's like the Lightning start. It was the first time I saw the Lightning, in my opinion, decide that they were going to start playing like the playoffs were starting soon. Like I was watching this game, the Lightning because the Stars have been playing pretty pretty good hockey, and the Lightning just rolled them. And it was like, but the Lightning just decided. It was as if they decided to, in my opinion. They just really.
But you know what this means, Zach? If the Stars don't make the playoffs, Jim Nill will get fired. He's going to get fired.
Yeah, It's
in a COVID season after they
after going to the finals, I don't know about that.
I think he might get fired. I do.
I mean, I don't know. They love him down there, and if he gets fired, that's a GM that people will jump on right away. So I don't know. But the Blue Jackets also beat the Predators. So in that race, the Blue Jackets beat the Predators too. So we're still looking at the same distance between the two teams. I think it's just like 3 points with the game in hand, or 4 points with the game in hand. I'll check that out in a second. It's right here, but
they're almost out of it at this point.
Yes, and at this point here, so where we are now with the Predators, 2 games left to play. The Stars 3 games left to play. And the Stars are 4 points back. So
it's not happening.
Yeah, so for Nashville, Nashville's final 2 games coming up are against. I'm looking up right now for you, but it's they play Carolina. That's going to be tough. They play Carolina twice, and then they play in their final game. It's nothing else. Carolina. That's something. I mean, because Carolina has dominated the Predators this year. Carolina is still playing. I'll take Carolina now. Actually, murdered in his sleep here.
What?
Carolina has 4 points up too. So Carolina made it.
People are working, Mike.
What was that? Are you okay?
No, I'm fine. People are working in my house. What am I going to do?
Yeah, no, it's fine. No, Carolina. Yes, there's a lot. I mean, it's really going to be tough. But Carolina, they could take out the Predators in a couple games. So Dallas.
Carolina has something to play for right now. I mean, if they win one more game, I think they pretty much have the top spot in that division locked. And like I've said about 5,000 times, what Carolina wants is for Florida and Tampa Bay to beat the crap out of each other, and they will in that first round.
Yeah. If they win one more game, they will have it. I mean, right now they each have 3 games left. Tampa's got 3 games left. They have 3 games left. and they're up 4 points. So yeah, one more win pretty much puts them. Although the ROW's to Tampa, so they need a little bit more than just one win. But they need if Tampa was to win all 3 of their games, they would need probably 3 points to do it. Right. So yeah, it's going to be it's a battle right now to the end there, for sure. But it looks like the Predators are gonna eke it out. The Predators, to their credit in this team's franchise history, just find a way of getting in the playoffs. Like the Predators have good years where they just make the playoffs, but in the bad years, the Predators still find ways to make the playoffs. It's unbelievable. They always have. They've always just found a way to make it.
They had the help of the gods this year. I mean, Dallas going through the COVID situation that they had really helped them out. And remember they were in the depths before the deadline, and then won 7 of 8 and got back into it.
Yeah. Those are the last 2 games of the Predators. I'm sorry. Those are that. So that is it. They have 2 more games left. I'm sorry again, and both of them are against Carolina. That's
right. That makes sense.
So where the Stars, have 3 games left, and they have they could have used a win in the last couple games.
They really needed it yesterday.
They blew a couple. They played Tampa, Chicago, and Chicago. Is that right? Yeah, they played Tampa, Chicago. Dallas does. So it's not over. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's not over. I mean, if the Predators. Listen, the Predators have 2 games left against Carolina. If the Predators lose the first game against Carolina, it gets really interesting.
What if that game goes into overtime, Nick?
No, I know. Then it's not. I mean, but if they lose it,
you're picking the most minuscule thing that could happen.
No, I mean,
them
losing Carolina is a minuscule thing. I mean, Carolina's the best team.
Here's what you're asking to happen. You're asking the Predators to not get a point in 2 games, and for Dallas to win all the rest of the games in regulation.
No, they have to. They only have to.
They only win 2 of them in regulation.
2 of them. 2 of them are against Chicago.
Oh, so now Chicago's a pushover where before they weren't.
No. I mean, they're a better team than Chicago. That's all. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah. I mean,
what if Chicago gets a point against them?
Let's go to the other race.
Uh-huh.
The other really go. It's pointless. The other race is
It is pointless. You're right.
Well, so last night, Montreal again loses to Ottawa. Again.
What does that mean in the grand lexicon of things?
Well, with winning, now Winnipeg is 2 points ahead of Montreal for 3rd place.
Yeah.
And now Montreal plays Toronto Thursday and Saturday. They're playing second back-to-back against Toronto.
You're just biding time until Carey Price gets back. I'm not sure the rest matters.
Both teams have 4 games left, Winnipeg and Montreal. Both teams are 4 games left, right? But Winnipeg's up by 2 points right now. So, that Winnipeg winning last night, Montreal losing definitely gave us a little bit more of a hope towards the Toronto-Montreal series, but it's still completely up in the air. Who's the tiebreaker in that one? The ROWs in that one would be Winnipeg. Yeah. Yeah. So Winnipeg would, if that ends up tied in points wise, does it go to a straight out wins or just goes to ROWs, right? If it's points are tied.
It's ROW is the first tiebreaker.
That's what I thought. Okay, yes, they've already won that one over. They've got 5 more over than Montreal does. So, there's only 4 games left. So Montreal can't even catch them in the ROW. So it's it's a huge win for Winnipeg. If they want to avoid Toronto, that was a huge win. But and a huge win for Montreal if they want to play Toronto. So maybe everybody gets what they want. I don't know.
There's a rumor that Carey Price will hit the ice today with full pads. We'll see.
Yeah, I guess we all.
Well, along those lines, just first of all, Carey Price is going to skate. It's not going to be in a game. It's just going to be practice. He's slowly, they're being very careful because he had a concussion, and I think he's been out a couple weeks. Frederik Andersen is going to play an AHL for the Marlies today, but he's only going to play half the game, Russ. And this is where everybody is now like interpreting and over-interpreting. But if he was ready to actually return, meaning, okay, he's getting in there because he hasn't been on the ice in over a month and he just wants to get some, get the blood flowing and get some shots taken on him, and they can't fit him under the cap, but he's going to play full games for the Marlies, then I think that would be something that everybody would say, okay, he's ready to go. Him playing a half game is sort of like, and Jamie McLennan said this, who former NHL goalie who does radio work in Toronto. He's like, him playing a half game means it's like sort of like training camp or it's preseason, where he's sort of feeling himself out. He doesn't exactly know, and the team doesn't exactly know where he is physically. And if they don't know where he is physically right now, on May 6th,
it's the only way they can test it. Clearly, if it's his knee, whatever it is on the iffy side, and this is the only way they can test it is by putting him in game situation to see how it responds. So this is it. They're going to play him for the half. They're going to see how it responds the next day, and that will decide everything for the playoffs.
Are the Marlies in the playoff race at all?
No. Well, there is no playoffs for the
no playoff. Oh, right. Sorry.
So this is the best way you could do it, rather than saying, well, we've simulated Freddie Andersen. They went a step further, and I give them credit for that.
Yeah. What this is saying is Jack Campbell is your starting goalie.
I mean, most likely, unless they think he looks great in this, and he says, I feel great, I don't have any problems. Then
there's any way you cannot have Jack. And Jack Campbell has gotten them where they are completely. He's
well, he'll start the first game, Mac, but it doesn't mean he's in there for the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah, he starts though. I mean, he's the starter.
He'll start the first game. But it could be the same thing as Grubauer years ago. We don't know how that's going to work out.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. He's definitely a nice X factor that Toronto has going for them right now.
Oh, yeah.
I think they have to stick with it. That's something that they could use. They could use that. It takes a little pressure off of them, actually, playing Campbell. Because Anderson Anderson has too many ghosts in his closet. And, if they start losing to Montreal and the Andersons in goal, it gets too strange pretty quickly, I think. So that's tonight we have what's going on tonight. It's a big weekend.
We have Team Canada playing in the under 18s, and they're going to win gold medal. Other than that, what else is on?
So when's that game?
9:00.
Is that game on television?
It might be on NHL Network. I'm not sure. It could be. I think it's supposed to be. I know it's on Hockey TV. I've paid for that, but it could be on NHL Network.
So Devils Islanders. So the big race, of course, in the East is all tight now, sort of splitting into two different things. It seems like it's either going to be Pittsburgh or Washington at the top, and then it's going to be the Islanders and the Bruins in the third and fourth spot, right? Which is a little surprising. Islanders have fallen fallen there, a little bit. I don't think it matters.
Well, when you lose to a 28-year-old minor league goaltender, I won't be insulting like the NHL website was calling him an ECHL goaltender when he lost 3 of 4 points to the Sabres, who, by the way, are only 2 points out of falling out of last place. They've almost caught Anaheim.
Right. Yeah. That's not what they want to do.
No.
So tonight you have the Rangers and the Bruins. So the Rangers are right back at it. I'm sure they're happy to get back on the ice. The Devils and the Islanders, and the Sabres and the Penguins. So you've got 3 games that matter in this Eastern Division, and the Islanders have to win tonight. And not that I think it really matters in that much in this division who plays who as far as home ice and stuff like that goes, because honestly, besides the Capitals, does it really matter? The Capitals, I think, are the best team, but they also, without Ovechkin, who knows where they're going to be. So this
right.
Division, I had a discussion the other day about this division not being as strong as I thought it was going to be. Like, I feel like this division is
which one?
The Eastern Division. It feels like I'm just you see these gaping holes in some of these teams up top. They're just not that. Normally, there's a team that you say, okay, like I look at.
I think there's gaping holes in every one of these teams.
I think in these too, but in the Eastern Division mainly.
Even Vegas and Colorado and Tampa are not perfect. They're pretty close, but they're not
a lot closer than anybody in this division. That's saying something. Obviously, Colorado is a great team, and so is Vegas right now. So yeah, but I think we're gonna see. I don't know. I'm really looking forward to the playoffs in this division. I think it's going to be a battle, but I also think that they're almost impossible to predict. Like I don't see any, the exception of I think the Islanders are the best team in the division, but I don't know. And they've got the best goaltending in the division, so I think the playoffs they've got the best.
I'm not so sure about that. I mean, the thing that makes me hesitate about that. I mean, okay, with the Capitals, it's the goaltending. I think is the biggest question mark.
Yep.
With the Islanders, I think it's still the offense.
Yeah, it's the scoring.
I honestly think that the team that has been the best since the deadline has been Boston. Rask has come back. They're getting secondary offense from Taylor Hall.
Yeah, I think Boston's still a big threat.
Yeah, their defense has gotten healthier. I mean, they're scary.
Boston has definitely the experience too. They have the just the swagger, that the Bruins have, which is always, the Bruins have the Bruin swagger. They have that in the playoffs. They were tough to beat in the playoffs, as Mike knows. But they are definitely a tough team to beat in the playoffs, and they are a swaggering team, and they can be frustrating. But they are also very much a one-line team sometimes. So it's just
That's why the Taylor Hall addition and him scoring, and not like a house on fire, but regularly with
some contribution from him is all they need. Just like a goal every other game or whatever. That's
and Rask to play like Rask, and now Pittsburgh getting Malkin back. Depending on who they match up with, they could be the team.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it'll be. I'm not. I just don't know. Maybe they are. Maybe they are better than the Islanders. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe Boston could be. Boston's the only team I would say could be. Well, that's all the time we have for today, guys. Thank you all for joining us. We will be back again tomorrow. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.